I had lost my identity. I had lost all of my sources of intellectual engagement. I had lost my community. I had lost this thing that I had defined myself by and that I had invested almost everything I had into.
Welcome to Retirement Revealed. I'm your host, Jeremy Keil, and we're here to turn your retirement savings into retirement income. Today, we're talking with Elizabeth Zelinka Parsons about retirement for high achievers. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, glad to have you on. And we said retirement for high achievers. We're not knocking anyone who's maybe not a high achiever in their own mind. But tell me, what's different about retirement if you've gone through life in kind of a higher than typical capacity through work?
Sure. Yeah, I use that term a bit tongue in cheek because I'm certainly writing the book as somebody who jokingly refers to myself that way, not so much because of my achievements as my mindset, which is, I would say I early on got into that mindset of looking for the rest of the world to validate my performance in life. That's sort of very common among the clients I work with. Often they're lawyers or doctors or other kinds of service providers that are really at the service of other people and tend to measure their success, by those externalities. So I don't mean in any way to exclude somebody who wouldn't apply that term to themselves. And frankly, I'd applaud them because it's tough. It's tough letting go of careers that we have defined ourselves by. So my book certainly does address some of the financial aspects, but it's as much about the fact that there's a lot more to prepare for when somebody who's given in their all to a career has to set that down and find purpose and meaning and engagement and new definitions of success for themselves outside of that career space. So that's really the way I mean to orient the book.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, and I like how you said it's people at the service of others, which is hopefully a lot of people in general. I think if you're trying to serve others, you're doing all right in life and in your career. But tell me about a little bit about yourself and how you got to maybe see this difference of retirement for people who claim to be high achievers.
You got it. Yeah, yeah. No, it's a good question. I, as I said, sort of set myself on that path as really a little kid, and I was driven to try to be the best at everything I did. Certainly in the academic realm, I focused on that. And by the time I got to law school, I was lucky enough to get into Georgetown, but I decided to go at night and work full time. So I was constantly in a pressure cooker and had gotten very used to that, trying to achieve and perform at very high levels under great stress and pressure. Then I joined a Wall Street law firm and did that more for 10 years. And eventually that collided with motherhood. And so by my mid 30s, I had small kids and an 80-hour a week job that was asking me to travel the world and handle very large transactions. And it was exciting and also impossible. And when I decided to leave the career to take care of my obligations to my family, the way that I described it to myself and everyone else was I'm front ending my retirement. And I thought that explained the whole thing. I just thought it made total sense. I thought, oh, this is obvious. I'll take some time from my future. I'll use it now when I need it, and I can always make money later. And so I thought the fact that I had enough money to get me through a few years of figuring out what's next was the whole solution. And what I quickly learned once the euphoria wore off is that I had lost my identity. I had lost all of my sources of intellectual engagement. I had lost my community. I had lost this thing that I had defined myself by and that I had invested almost everything I had into. And I was very unprepared for what a jarring loss it was. My life structure didn't make sense anymore to me. I didn't know how to explain who I was to the world. And so I see these themes repeat themselves no matter when people leave careers like that. Obviously, I'm working with people who tend to be in their late 50s to 60s, but they are navigating all of the same issues, except sometimes even more so because they've been at it 30 years, not 10. So that was when I first realized that this retirement word held a lot of mythology for people. And the money's important, don't get me wrong, but there's so much more to figure out too.
Yeah, there's definitely, and you mentioned that you've kind of front loaded your own retirement because of motherhood. I've been exploring in some of the podcasts just the thought that I wonder if females have a better transition ability into retirement because they've done it before. Like they've made this big life altering transition before, that just in a way that that the men just don't have the ability or chance or to
Yeah.
do that. Have you found that? Maybe it's hopefully easier for females to transition to retirement. What have you seen?
Yeah, it's a great question. And like anything, there are exceptions, but I think there are
Hmm.
some broad generalizations that I could make based on the people I've worked with over the last 15 years. And that is, yes, that women who have had intense careers, first of all, have often had to inhabit more than one significant role at the same time. And so that role of motherhood is so powerful. And I'm not saying fatherhood isn't, but I think
Hmm. It's
culturally,
different
right?
though. It's different.
Right, it's different, that's all I'll say. They're both amazingly important, but there is something incredibly, definitional, I think, for most people when they become mothers, and so if you're able to hold career and motherhood together at the same time, you have at least not completely defined your success around just career, whereas I think it's easier to fall into that situation as, a very successful man in a career, because in many ways society is saying to you, hey, you're checking all the boxes just fine, you're supporting your family, you're a great provider, you're succeeding at work, sure, you're a good dad, but like you don't have to define yourself that way. Whereas I think for most women I work with, they've tried to navigate both, and so when they set career down, they have had other pieces of themselves very strongly alive. And so they're not necessarily as bereft of
Hmm.
of a sense of who they are, if that makes some sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And it's interesting. Just this past weekend, I said to a friend of ours who's a mom of many kids, and I said, "What did you do before?" And she looked at me and said, "I am a nurse." And I thought, my goodness, like good for her for like she's got like, and I don't think she's had a
Yeah,
professional role as a nurse, paid by the hour for it for 10 years. But I thought,
right.
here she is. She's exactly what you said. She's got this duality of here's who I am and here's who I am.
Yep.
And the men often just have the here's who I am, just the one thought of it,
Yeah.
at least in the forefront. Yeah. So it was interesting. I thought good for her. Good for her for
Oh
taking
yeah.
my, the way I said it to, yeah, that was great. But although male or female, right? You said yourself, driven to be the best, you hit retirement. How do you become the best at retirement, right? Here's this new challenge. How do you become the best at retirement?
Exactly. It's how do I, if I am somebody who's been driven by these external measures of success, how do I now take that further? I mean, how do I understand myself as a person who continues to stay relevant and achieve and have purpose and engagement? And what are the big mindset shifts that we really work with our clients on is beginning to think differently about what success is and what your role in life is. So usually my clients have been in professions where they are excellent reactors. They react to the content that comes at them every day. They react to the problems that people bring to them to solve, and that's what they're really good at. And that's what they've been honing as a skill for decades. But if you take that reactor mindset into this phase of life that we have referred to as retirement, I prefer to call it another graduation, but we'll use retirement because that's the handle everyone uses. If you take that mindset into this chapter, you'll find yourself standing there waiting for things to be served up to you to deal with. And that's what's stopped, right? You're supposed to be stepping into a chapter of freedom and choice. But if you're not used to becoming the creator of what the life experience will be, it can feel really uncomfortable because you're standing there thinking, why does no one need me anymore? Why is nobody coming to me? Where am I relevant? Where can I do the thing I do? And so you've really got to start to get your head around the fact that no, part of the freedom that you're stepping into is the ability to be the creator of the life you're going to go lead. It's a new skill, and it's really challenging at first because it's not something most people in intense careers have had a luxury to think about. They don't ask, what do I want? They just do what's in front of them day after day. So that shift is very fundamental to the work we do with people. And to your point about making sure the money is there, your money's there to enable, right, all of these goals and dreams you in theory have been working for. But sometimes when you arrive at that moment, it's hard to activate all that stuff.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about a couple things because you mentioned this mindset shift, but before that, you also said you kind of go from this reaction role to a
Hmm.
creation role, which is definitely a shift there. I was just listening to another podcast. They mentioned that reaction and creation have the exact same letters, just
Yep.
rearranged. I wonder,
Yep.
has that did that play into your thought there?
Absolutely. I think I say that exact thing in my book. It's funny that the
Okay,
creator
yeah,
and reactor are the terms I use, but they have the identical letters, just
yeah,
rearranged, and it is that's just a funny quirk, I guess. But
yeah.
I do think they are two sides of the same coin. And you know it's always a light bulb moment when I'm working with people, because they and no matter what they've been doing professionally, they think you're right. I wake up every day to a stream of content that somebody else is providing, even if
Hmm.
it's my business. So
Yeah, it's almost like you go from a problem solver to a problem creator. Like you've got to create the problems to solve. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
yeah, yeah. If you don't do that, it is a problem, right? Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
uh, yeah. The thing I mentioned just quickly is mindset shift. I've also found that a danger, or not a danger, a conundrum that you're facing is that you've got this thought that you're a saver and you have
Mhm.
to shift over to a spender. And just right
Yes.
there is tough to do because you've felt for 35 years, I am a saver. How am I supposed to become a a spender? Give me your
Yes.
thought on that, and I'll give you my thought afterwards. See where we align.
I love it. Yes, that's another, mindset shift I get explicit about in the book, because we see it commonly. Many of our clients are, very gratefully in a position that they know they're very secure financially, and yet they feel a sense of anxiety that they don't have income anymore in the sense that they always did. And now the whole idea is they're supposed to use what they accumulated to support their lifestyle over time, and that somehow feels like an impossible thing to allow themselves to do, because they have been saving their money for decades. And the idea that they're going to invade that, the iceberg, is just impossible. So we encourage them to think about the purposes that that money represents to them, because money, until it's deployed, is really just an idea. I mean, it's a
Hmm.
sense of security, but it's really an idea. It's sitting there, in a bank somewhere, and you can look at it, but it's not doing much for you until you actually use it. And so we talk to them about, what were the things you thought you'd be using it for? I mean, is it access to great experiences, a way to take care of people you love, a way to be philanthropic? Is it, I mean, a way to explore the world? I mean, what were the things that the money stood for in your mind when you were so busy earning it? And try to get more interested in those purposes and think about how to use it in meaningful ways, as opposed to thinking about spending it. Think about
Hmm.
your investing that money into parts of your life that matter to you. And that is very helpful to people, because the spending word almost sounds like it's being wasted or used up, and that there's nothing valuable coming from the use of the money. So that is often a helpful way to think about that shift. But I'm very interested in your thinking on it, because I'm sure you've talked about it with many people.
Yeah, I like how you're going with this, where when you save, you're saving for you're calling money an idea. Yeah, that's a great way to think of it.
Mhm.
It's this idea. What is the idea you had it for? And
Right.
all you're doing is you're shifting it from idea to actuality.
Yes.
I'm just remembering some like philosophy classes like back in
Yeah.
the day. Like this is really like how it is. Like you've basically saved for the thought of a car,
Yes,
and then all you're
exactly.
doing is just turning it into from the thought
The
into
car.
reality of the car. That's what you've been doing. Yes, I like this idea of money
Exactly.
not deployed is really an idea. I'm gonna have to think more about that. My thought so far, my encouragement is, you call yourself a saver, and you're just worried about becoming a spender. Like it's a bad thing. Like this is a good
Hmm.
word. Saver's a good word. Spender's a bad word in the
Yeah.
mindset of a spender. And my encouragement is to stop calling yourself a saver. Stop thinking you're becoming a spender. You're just a planner. You're a planner, and for 35 years, your tactic was saving, and you're still a planner. Nothing's changed. It's just the natural extension of your planning is to follow the next tactic, which happens to be spending.
I
You're a
love
planner. You
that.
haven't changed at all. You're a planner the whole time. You're a planner.
I really love that. I think that's a terrific way to join those concepts, because I think you're right. I'd not thought about the connotations that might attach to those words as good or bad. And really, when they're just tactics. They're tactics in the
Hmm.
overall plan. That's a really nice way to think about it.
Yeah, we're talking through some tactics, and I suppose if you're a high achiever, you like the idea of tactics. So, give me a few other thoughts, some other tactics on how if you're trying to be the best at retirement, right? And that's okay. I like this idea. You're the best at work.
Yeah.
Let's go out and make sure you're the best at retirement. What should people be looking at?
Sure. So what remind people, I mean, there are a few things I'd say. One is that I think we all hold this concept in our minds of retirement being all leisure. It's like, finally I get to play all day. But the truth is 365 Saturdays in a row gets pretty darn boring. It really does. Leisure has meaning when it exists in tension with effort, and even if it's effort you're choosing. So I don't mean to suggest you have to continue working in that sort of word in the way that we might say work is something we all wish we were doing less of. But you want to find things to be challenged by, engaged in, contributive around, because it's that effort to do and be that then allow you to enjoy the times of rest, recovery, and leisure. And so I just always point out to people, like, it's fine if you want to take a year and just do nothing but play golf and travel. For sure, we get it. But one day, I promise you, you will wake up and think, this cannot be all there is for the rest of my life. So be ready for that. And the second thing is, don't forget that the structure of your life has probably been heavily defined by your career. Most of us with intense, important, or big careers have prioritized that as the architecture around which everything else lives. And so I always think of it like the scaffolding, and then all the little bits and pieces are tucked in around that scaffolding, and we fit our family in, and we fit our kids in, and we fit in our hobbies if we're lucky. But if you just pluck the scaffolding out of the middle overnight and you don't do any rearranging, you don't do any new architecture, that's kind of a mess. It feels like a mess. And I lived that. You are this human doing who's used to having this strong structure and all this intensity and pressure, and all of a sudden it's gone, and you don't know how to be with the leftover pieces of your life. So we try to get people to really think about how to structure life when there isn't the monolithic career. And we use this idea of a mosaic. And you think about, what are all the pieces of your life that would light up and be of even importance in that lovely mosaic that you want to put together, that you choose. So those are some concepts that I think aren't obvious all the time to people. But as we talk through them, they realize, oh, these are some of the things that I have found most unsettling as I think about what retirement might mean for me. And when you start to get intentional around those things, you can start to see, like, oh, wait a minute, this could be fun. This could be juicy. So that's what we try to, move people toward.
Yeah, and you're moving people towards a better version of retirement for them. You've also mentioned clients, so tell me how you approach how you're actually working with people, with your clients.
Sure, sure. We tend to mainly, most of our significant clients are organizations, and they offer various versions of our programming to their employees or their partners, as they are confronting this moment, to help them really support them as individuals and really embracing this inflection point, turning it into a moment of opportunity. And that also helps them typically do a better job with their own succession planning inside the organization. So we often will work with people very intensely over 2 days if it's a very high touch experience they want. We also do group programs for companies or partnerships where they want people to come as a cohort and learn more about how do you get ready for this intentionally. Occasionally we do work with individuals as well. And we've got a team of people trained in our materials who can help there too. So we've tried to make this material more accessible, because what I keep hearing over and over is how many people get to retirement and they are not finding it satisfying. And it's a little terrifying to think this is now what I work for. And sure, I have the money, but all the rest of this is not really working out the way I pictured. And I don't know how I should approach it. How would I go about constructing something more meaningful?
Yeah, and I think timing wise, I've seen lots of studies that show that people retire about 3 years earlier on
Yeah.
average. So I encourage anyone to not just get your money 3 years earlier than average, which is why uh, earlier than you thought, I suppose is a better way to say it. If you think you're going to
Yeah.
retire at 65, chances are you're retiring about 3 years earlier for a variety of reasons. So it's worthwhile to
Right.
get your money ready 3 years ahead of time and your mindset. We'll go
That's
some
right.
alliteration there, 3 years at a time. So since we're talking about this right now, how would people reach out, look at the programming you're talking about?
Sure. Yes. You can always find me at highachieverretirement.com. That's just an easy way to link straight into my various websites. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. My book is available everywhere books are sold. So, that's a great place to start if this concept is just intriguing. But yeah, we're always happy to hear from folks.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll put that in the show notes. And thinking too, if we've got some people that like to do things on their own, right? And I think having a guide in a lot of reasons, a lot of areas of life is helpful. But if you're trying to do this on your own, if you're trying to approach retirement and do well at that, what would really be the first step that someone should take?
I would say, I mean, if reading isn't the most natural thing to do, I think what I would suggest people do is talk to people who've already retired, who are living chapters that you admire, that you think look energizing, and get some advice. I think people feel sheepish about admitting that they don't have this figured out, and I would tell everybody, drop that. You're not alone. Almost everybody feels a little unsettled at this moment. Everything is changing. And so don't be shy about getting out there and connecting with other people who have been through it or are going through it, particularly if you think they're going through it well, and get some insight from them about what's working and what isn't. And be intentional, as you said a little while ago, about not just your money, but think about who you want to be in this next chapter. How do you want your life to work? How is this going to affect the other people in your life? Are they on board? Have you talked about it? So I just think people have got to step out of the shadows a little bit and not feel that they're the only person who hasn't got this whole thing, you know, figured out completely. That would be my piece of advice.
Yeah, I like it. Here he said, I said, what if you want to do it on your own? And you said, talk to people. And that's exactly
Yeah.
it. I think that's what
Yeah.
having others around is going to be helpful. That's what we interviewed Fritz Gilbert from the Retirement Manifesto blog.
Mm,
And that's how he started his retirement journey. He followed your advice 10 years ago. So it's
yeah.
on the right track. And he's written a couple books about that,
Nice.
where he just was interviewing people he knew. Okay, you retired from my organization a few years ago. You seem like you're happy. What do I need to know? He was
Mm,
interviewing people that try to figure it out. And he really got a lot out of that.
love
And
it.
thankfully shared it all through the Retirement Manifesto blog and some of his books. I think that's a great idea there. Now you called it another graduation, but we'll remind people that's all. It's a better phrase for retirement. But how would you envision your next graduation? How does that look for you?
Oh, I love it. Well, I have to say, as I embraced this chapter of my working life, it has been really thoroughly energizing. I think that what I will probably evolve into more as I approach that next inflection point is speaking and writing. Writing this first book was a pure joy. I absolutely loved that project. It was a little sad when it was over, and now I'm more in the sharing with the world the fact that it's out there. But I'm excited about embracing my next writing project, and thought leadership and speaking and those things. I really love that stuff. And I will probably continue doing this work for a very long time because it doesn't feel like work to me. It's one of those things that I'm very lucky to say is a way that I earn my living. It is my current profession, but it's also a great joy. So I look at it as something that I will simply reshape so that I perhaps can emphasize different pieces of the work. But hopefully, I'll be doing it a long time.
That's great. I like how you're saying that you enjoyed the writing process. It sounds like you want to do another one. I've heard maybe writing a book is almost like a tattoo. Like you get like, you just want to get more of them once you have the one. I wonder if that's how it is. I just, and I'm saying this because this morning at 7 a.m., I sent in my final manuscript for my book about
Congrats!
retirement. Yeah. So that'll be coming out shortly. We'll be sprinkling in over time in the
Oh,
podcast
I'm so happy for you.
yeah, thank
I'll
you.
let me know when it's out. I'd
I
love to
will
check it out.
I will definitely do that. My wife says to me, it's odd that you're writing a book about retirement when you don't plan to retire yourself. I said, well, I'm not going to presume what I want to do in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I've
Yeah,
said for 20 years that I'm never going to retire. And then just realizing over time, and then also through a lot of the podcast, I think most likely, most of it of, I don't know what I'm going to want in 5, 10, 20 years. So
right.
why say I am going to retire or not going to retire? I find some people actually kind of get into that, um, not yeah, they're stuck in a way. Like they said, I'm going to retire at 55, and so they've just planned on it, or I'm going to retire at this exact age, and they
Yeah,
just plan on this age, and they just do it because that's what they've kind of told themselves
right,
for 30 years.
right.
I find that that's maybe a place people get stuck, and then they say, well,
Agreed.
what I do? It's like they got this endpoint, and it's not an
And now
endpoint.
what?
You got 30 more years left.
That's right.
Yep.
Exactly. Even if you have the money, like that's,
Yep.
human beings need worthy goals. We need things
Mm-hmm.
that ask things of us. So I agree. I think the notion of an early retirement sounds so seductive when you're 25 and you're working
Mm-hmm.
really hard, but you get there and you realize, like, wait a minute, I've
Yep.
got to have something going on in my life. And especially if you're also on the verge of, launching your kids and that
Mm-hmm.
piece of middle adulthood is over. And then it's like, wow, what am I going to be doing? So it's
Yep.
always worth thinking about.
Yep, for sure. Well, I've got one more question for you, Elizabeth.
Yeah,
And you mentioned it briefly, but before that, tell me what's the best way to reach out to you?
sure. You can find, all my websites through one link, highachieverretirement.com. And the other place that everything is all in one spot is on my LinkedIn profile. So Elizabeth Zelinka Parsons, I think I'm the only one on there. So always happy to connect with folks. And, this is a topic that I absolutely love talking about and sharing about. So
Yeah,
certainly welcome it.
we'll get all those links out there. Remind me exactly. Let's say it for everyone the full name of your book.
Yes, it's Encore, a high achiever's guide to thriving in retirement.
Excellent. Good. We'll have direct links to that as well. And of course, we like apparently writing books now here at the Retirement Revealed podcast, but we love
All right.
giving books away. So the first 3 people who email me, podcast@keilfp.com, asking for a copy of Elizabeth's books, the first 3 people, I will send you a copy of
Ah,
Elizabeth's book. Yeah.
lovely.
Enjoy that. All right. Final question for you, Elizabeth. Tell us something about yourself that few people know about. And remember, this podcast is rated clean.
Okay, I've got it. I went skydiving on Mother's Day in my 40th year because I watched my 72-year-old friend go skydiving on her birthday a few months earlier than that. And I was so blown away by her courage. And I'm terrified of heights. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to do this. I can do it. And it was a complete blast.
That's awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it, but I'm curious if you did it. Have you done it again?
I have not done it again, but my son, who was only about 9 or 10 at the time, said to me when he turned 18, Mom, on my 18th birthday, I'm going skydiving. And I was like, oh my
Of course.
goodness. And he did.
Okay. All right. Well, and you both lived
So
to tell the tale.
be careful what you let your kids watch you do.
I suppose, right? Okay. Well, yeah. Thanks for sharing that. It sounds like you're still
Uh,
enjoying it. The fact that you did that, it's good.
I know it's nuts. So
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, sharing us some great ideas about how high achievers who have done great at work can do great at retirement.
thank you. It's been fun.
Yep, you got it. And thank you for listening to the Retirement Revealed podcast. We believe if you know more about your money, you'll feel better about your money and you will make better money decisions. Hi, I'm Jeremy Keil with the Keil Financial Partners. If you'd like to see how we help our clients get more income, pay less in taxes, and avoid big retirement mistakes, head on over to keilfp.com. That's KEILFP.com.